Welcome to the Bread and Butter Podcast.
Another one.
Another one. I think this is episode number 9.
Feels like it.
Feels like 9.
Wow, 9. And we have the owner of Table 9 here. Was that planned out? I don't
Table
think so.
9
I think it was
coaching.
just
I love it.
coincidental.
It's going to be fun. How was your week been, Sam?
Oh, man, you know what? My week was awful until Friday, and then Friday, it was awesome. And Friday happened, and a major problem I've been experiencing got resolved, and it freed up so much headspace that I had been focusing on.
Yeah.
It freed up that headspace, and it felt like a vacuum. I felt like an idiot all weekend, like I didn't have anything to think about, so I didn't think about anything.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing.
Great. Went to Mystic Beach with the family and spent the day on Saturday in the garden, and came to work going, what am I going to worry about today?
I love it. I love
And
it.
so far, nothing's come up. So I'm sure something will make me worried.
Listen, it's business. It's good. Something's going to come up. A new cloud will appear, and
right. It's not 2:00 yet. So,
no. But part of that is you apply, how you solve problems and figure out your process, and just move that new cloud into a new decision-making tree and move forward. And I think our guest John Reese knows a lot about that. He's been helping businesses and restaurateurs for a number of years, and I'd like to welcome to the podcast. Hey, John, how are you?
Hey, John.
Thank you. For a second there, I thought you were going to say that I know a lot about clouds and that I'm a closet meteorologist or something.
Wow. And here I was going to say what a good segue that was, but I guess it wasn't as good as it sounded on this side of the podcast.
No, I just messed it up. That's all.
It was like a
you
perfect
guys laid
thing.
the bait. I didn't take it.
It was perfect until the meteorologist came in.
Yeah, sorry about that. Always a joker in the crowd.
Thank you. Well, welcome to the podcast, John. It's a real pleasure
thank you
to
for
see
having
you.
me. I'm
and have
really
you.
excited to be here.
Yeah.
Why don't you start by introducing yourself and what you've done, and a little bit of a bio, I guess, or listeners and viewers can see.
Yeah, okay, sure. Well, as you guys mentioned, I am Table 9 coaching. I've been running my own little consulting and business coaching affair for about the last 5 years or so, but I am a hospitality lifer, as they say. I've been at it professionally since I was in my early 20s, and I've been in various management and leadership positions over the years. I'm always in food and beverage. That was my thing. I decided I wanted to get into that, much to my parents' chagrin when I was younger, and managed to stick with it. Although my hair is not blonde, it is noticeably white and thinning. So I think there might be something there. But yeah, no, I've been around the hospitality game for a long, long time, and I work with small to medium-sized business owners, entrepreneurs, whether they be in startup or midstream or been at it for a long time and just need to get a little bit unstuck and get back on track. So that's essentially what I do. And I'm also involved as an owner of a company called Trading Post Brewing Company. And also recently, we're starting up a little winery called Valley Commons.
Fantastic! Where's that at?
Well, it's gonna be a 2-headed monster. We've just planted a vineyard in Fort Langley this spring, and we're opening a winery in August in the Okanagan Valley, and we also just purchased Stoneboat Winery in Oliver. So, suddenly that's all taken off as well. So yeah, it keeps me busy, and I'm having fun. I get to be my own boss and sit in my eldest son's bedroom and pretend that I've got a fancy corner C-suite office. But
listen, you got to fake it till you make it.
You betcha, whatever it takes. And you guys just totally ruined it. Now that I have to be on YouTube with this podcast, my cover has been blown.
I love your window with the view of the fall forests out there.
I know, isn't that great?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like upstate New York or something.
It's summer, but whatever.
I am a Southern Ontario boy, so when I saw this hanging in a local gallery a number of years ago, I bought it and put it in my office because it just reminded me of fall in Ontario.
Oh, it's fantastic for sure.
So I did it.
Well, I'm sure all of the business people and entrepreneurs out there can attest to their office story, and where they operate out of. It could be the kitchen table, the car,
it's usually the
bathroom.
trunk of my car.
Yeah,
you got it.
All of that, but as long as the work gets done. So, John, tell me, if I'm a person looking to get into business or already in business and kind of feel a little stuck, What advice would you give a person who's looking for help, and where would they start? And kind of walk me through a little bit about your process when.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think most of the time, just as a very broad and general statement, I think most of us need, all of us need some sort of mentorship. We need an accountability partner who's going to kick us in the butt and keep us on track and keep on top of the things that we've committed to do. So I do a little bit of that. But the process would be very simply, if I was to meet someone for the first time, I try to keep it very high level. Most clients or potential clients come to me with what I refer to as symptoms. Something isn't working. Our food cost is whacked. Our sales are going down. Whatever. We're losing market share, whatever it might be. And I look at those again as very much symptoms of bigger issues, and they typically are. So I'll go in. We'll chat. We'll do some exploration. We'll have a little conversation. I usually will go in and do an audit of some type, just a very high level audit of different parts of their operation, and provide them with my understanding of where they are, and then see what it is they want to focus on. So I customize it. I don't have a rigid formula that I try to apply. But usually it comes down to things like you want to talk about today, operating systems and procedures. I spent a lot of time working on culture and just refocusing people on what they started out doing or what they want to start out doing, and keeping them on task, because so often we just get pulled asunder and start chasing things all over the place. And I just like to get them back to what was successful for them, and move them forward with a good strategy, good plan.
A good strategy is always important. I remember when I reached out to you some years ago, and I felt like
Yeah.
I was asking for more than just where's my money.
Yeah.
My questions were bigger and broader, and I
Yeah.
mean,
Who am I? What am I doing
right?
here?
Like, and I had been in business for 20 years, and
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
totally.
really struggling with that. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was nice to have someone who could be that mentor and that guide and the accountability partner. Just putting things out there in a clear way, something that's organized, and then
Mhm.
holding me to an account was a great way to start introducing the idea of an operating system for me.
Right. Totally.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know, as you probably experience as you're growing your business too. I mean, if you've got one shop and it's kind of a symbiotic little spot, it's doing whatever it's doing in sales. It's pretty all right in front of you.
Right.
But as you expand and grow, like you did, I imagine, and for us, even with Big Will Burger, as we went to our second and third locations, the gaps that started showing were
Hmm.
huge, and it takes a lot of effort and work and a lot of self-analysis on what you don't have and what you haven't brought to the table, and where the gaps are. And I know for us, the systemization of things really helped us, introducing SOPs, standard operating procedures, and
Yeah.
just documenting how we want to run the business,
Right.
versus just doing it ad hoc, especially as you're growing the number of staff and number of people that you need to interact with. It's not just about the customer supporting you; it's about the systems
Right.
that is supporting the business. And I think a lot of it takes a lot of critical self analysis and admitting you don't know what you don't know.
Well, yeah.
For
I mean,
sure.
I was such a small business well, forever. I'm still a really small business, and but when I was only one cafe, I was only one person too. It's like,
Yeah,
sure, I had some employees, but they all worked with me,
yeah,
and
Yeah.
it was all whatever I wanted that day or that week, and there was no rhyme or reason except provide good service and good product,
yeah.
and that was my operating system, and it was not good. I mean, I could never
But
have grown.
it served the purpose. But if you're growing,
Well,
right?
it served
Yeah.
a
How do you
purpose as an
duplicate that?
establishment, but if I ever wanted to have my own personal life
Yeah,
back, and if I wanted to have any work-life balance, if I ever wanted to know who Sam Jones was again, I needed to know what my business was independently of myself, and the only way to do that was by instilling some operating systems for me.
yeah.
John, you
Hmm.
must see that kind of situation time and time again,
Yeah. And it's, yes, I do.
and it's sad, right? No,
I don't know.
my
I
case
think,
is
I
sad.
think, I
You're
think
sad
what,
for you.
no, yeah, well, you're just a sad individual.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
poor Sam.
Yeah,
Oh,
poor Sam. Wow, wow,
yeah. I'm
wow.
feeling really good now, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, woohoo. No, I think you guys have nailed a couple of points really, really well. People, especially in hospitality, and I'm sure it applies in other businesses as well, although perhaps not quite in the same way. But hospitality, and all include craft beer and craft distilleries, artisan type products. Um, we get into these things because we're passionate about the thing, whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? I'm passionate about burgers. I want to make the best flipping hamburger. I want to recreate this. I want to make an amazing craft beer. I want to make the best, Neapolitan style pizza. Whatever it is that we're passionate about, suddenly we decide that we have to turn that into a business, okay, in order to satisfy that, scratch the itch, so to speak. And then we realize, we wake up one day and go, oh crap, here I am. Yeah, this isn't just a hobby anymore. This is a business. And what am I going to do about it? And, like Sam, I think you're a perfect example, man. You are operating in essentially a tent.
Yeah.
Right. You were 2% Jazz. You were it. And you can do that up to a certain point until two things begin to happen. One, you start losing your life, like Sam mentioned, or two, you want to start growing and you realize that you need more of a foundation than what it is that's popping around in your head all the time. Right. So that's when that looking in the mirror and doing, having a really good hard look at what you're doing, what you believe in, what you're trying to achieve, and gaining focus around that is so vitally important, because you can't, when you get a second or a third location, just do it shooting from the hip, because you're going to run into all sorts of problems from it. And I think, Calen, you are bang on in terms of systems. It's about supporting your people and helping them to be set up to succeed. It's not only about the customer, which it is. It's not only about the bottom line, which it is, but a lot of it's really foundational for what kind of work experience are we going to be able to create for people. And if people walk into chaos, it doesn't take them long to figure out what the heck's going on, and they'll either choose to be a part of the chaos because that suits them, or most people will say, this place is so freaking disorganized, it's a gong show, I don't need this stress, and they walk.
Yeah.
And you can't do that, right? And so laying that foundation of any kind of systems or procedures or whatever lingo you want to attach to them, SOPs, is vitally important. And that's what I see it as being. It's simply a foundation upon which you build your life and or the growth of your company.
Right. So these procedures, they could are you talking about really detailed, nuanced for everything? Or are you a proponent of more kind of broad scale?
I'm neither detailed nor nuanced, Sam. So,
And that's why we
All right,
were
that's
able
the
to
end of the
get you on
podcast.
our
Thank
podcast.
you, John, for joining us today.
okay, gotta go. That was great, guys.
We're only
you really
after
picked that
nuance
bone
here.
clean.
Well, I think this was almost a leading question, if I'm
was.
not mistaken. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, I was trying to get more out of
Yeah.
you than that.
There are people who are by nature, in their makeup, very systems oriented. It's just the way they go about life, right? These are the super organized people. They've got lists, they're detailed, they're organized, they're productive, they're all that stuff that I'm not typically, although I do a lot of this stuff, like post-it notes everywhere. Like I just got them everywhere, crumpled in my pocket, stuck on the wall, on the shower, like everywhere. But I like to look at it again, and not to use this term ad nauseum, but I probably will, is I'm much broader in my thought. And I think that was or more broad. I don't know what the right lingo is, language, but I look at processes and systems and procedures as being part of the whole. They aren't the whole, right? They're the finger pointing to the moon. They're not the moon. So these things are there. Any kind of system, procedure, process is something that has to start with the big okay, what is it that we're trying to achieve in a few very simple steps? And then you break it down into more detail to support that process. And how detailed you are and how many of those systems you want to put in place really becomes a bit of an individual choice. But until you have the understanding of what the process is that you're trying to influence the outcome that you're looking for, whether it be an operational, whether it be human resource, whether it be finance and bookkeeping or admin or marketing or sales, whatever those bigger picture processes are, you have to get clear on first. And then you start building in the SOPs underneath, because those are the tools. That's the toolbox that allows you to hit that process all the time. What happens in my experience, and I've often fought this, again, just because I'm not really built this way, is that people really begin to geek out on SOPs, and they start building out layers upon layers upon layers of detail, with each SOP having 100 points. And there's no possible way, first of all, that people are going to be able to follow them. No possible way are you, as a business owner or a manager or a leader, being able to consistently train them. You're not going to be able to measure performance against them because they're so complex, and the whole thing can become self-defeating. But what I see on top of that is that, these systems, or the system-mindedness, can really begin to take on a life of its own. And you have this very complex set of systems that suddenly requires a systems administrator or a systems assistant. And it was funny, we were looking for, and on a long story, but I was looking at a job posting the other day for a larger company. I think it was a casino company. And they had a position open for an F&B systems assistant who was to work with the F&B systems manager, administrator, who was then going to work with the F&B director. Like,
wow.
When systems become when they
bigger than the job itself,
bigger than the job itself, or taking on a life of their own, like you're spending all your time managing the systems, you've probably lost your way a little bit.
Yeah, I think,
Go ahead.
I was going to say that I think that is a fantastic point in understanding the big and then diving down. I think certain problems require a little more detail underneath, but not all. Don't create detail for the sake of it. Right. And then work with that system and decide what you can throw out and how much detail is required, provided that the big picture of it is being done and that you're satisfied that there's no major gaps. I know in our business, when we moving to 2 was a bit of an eye opener. Moving to 3 was when it was like, just rip your chest out and take out your heart and lungs and go, okay.
I found that with having children.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing.
When we hit 3, it was like, oh my, all bets are off, man.
Well, then you realize you got to get better organized. Totally. I think, and ideally with planning. And I think in my particular experience, when we decided to do Big Wheel, we already had Zambries. Zambries had, basic rudimentary systems. We only had one business. Joe and Peter Zambry were in there every day. And that was the prison, right? So the prison is, if you don't create systems and you don't create an arm's length relationship with your own business, then you are becoming, a slave to that business in a sense.
Everything relies upon you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got.
And that's the point. The point of creating the systems is so you don't. When we did Big Wheel, we did it arm's length from the get-go, and that was a different experience because you didn't start with total control of everything. You actually started just as a kind of a coach and the idea generator, and here's what we want it to look like. So we needed to hire the right people, and when you're expanding on that model, if you don't have all we always wanted to do multi-stores, so that was not the issue. But we did all the marketing and all that kind of stuff and the look and feel that way. But we didn't really have any SOPs or, procedures or, how are we going to do it as we went to 2? How we go to 3 and go to 4? And we had to play a lot of catch up after that. So as good as we were at the global picture, we still weren't good at the details of how are the systems and what systems we needed in place in order to run effectively. And it became abundantly clear when we did 3. Not that our customers could see it. I think our food quality was there, but the behind the scenes and employee turnover, like just blatant goofy mistakes that cost money. And then you just are now having to it took us 2 years to backfill the procedures that we needed. And the good part about it is it didn't weigh us down. Like, we're not bogged down by those, But even now, as we're moving forward, we're involved with the BDC is looking at all of we're using them as a consultant on our systems and what we need if we want to do 10 or 15.
Right.
So that part of the discussion is something that I think anybody getting into business needs to do, even if their only goals are to do one, because the systems and procedures and understanding how you're going to remove yourself out of the business is important. Otherwise, you become, as Sam was at the beginning, the only engine behind the business. And that's not a fun place to be, no matter how successful you are. I mean, when you're not successful, yet all hands on deck, you've got to try to get to the point where you can step back a bit. But if you don't have the systems to lean on, then your message and the culture of the business will be lost if you're, fishing or camping or doing whatever you do.
Right,
Sam.
and that is the important part, and I guess that's kind of like the very basics of procedures might be your value system and what you bring to your business, and that might be a good place to start in trying to build one's operating system. Is start with the very core foundation of what your business is there for.
Yeah, and it's the vision, basically your vision,
right?
And then finding a way how to communicate that to the people that you work with.
Yeah.
Not everybody can hire a GM and just step back. The budgets aren't there. Your sales volumes might not be there, but I think you can still have the vision of, okay, when we reach this, then I'm going to have this position, and this is what that position is going to do, and then you can start building kind of the framework for success in that, so that you're not 10 years down the road. And I think Joe and Peter now they're in a position where they're not have to be in Zambres every day. But we've been in business 20 years.
Yeah.
So they were grinding it out for 12 to 15 years. And I don't know, as much as I don't know that it was great for us, I don't think it was great for them personally. But that was just lack of forward thinking when it comes to the structures, and they felt they needed to be there for every minute, which is the trap.
It's the trap. It's a very common trap. There's no question about it. But as you're alluding to, it's, you can get away with it for a limited period of time, but it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And even if you don't think that this is happening, I can assure you it is, that you're going to, this is not only eroding your own effectiveness, it's eroding your own enjoyment of the business. It's eroding your mental, physical, emotional, spiritual health, and ultimately all of those things will end up showing themselves directly or indirectly on bottom line erosion. So yeah, you can do it for a little bit of time, but you got to do as best you can to pull out of that so that you can have some sort of sustainable, healthy, smart way of going about business.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic advice. And I know, just thinking back on my own experience, and I pretty much know, like, our entire senior management team can just go away for a month, and eventually, the business will start feeling the effects of that. But as far as it being, there's going to be, all the systems are in place. They know how to operate the stores. They know how to close the stores. They know how to service the business. They can completely manage it. And I think that, to me, is the biggest message. The quicker somebody can get to the point where the business can sustain itself without having your, 100% of your manpower and brain power and to help drive it. And part of that is the business person to being able to let go of the control of that. And you can't always do it, but there's that pivot point where if you don't do it, you're actually in your own way.
Absolutely.
Especially if the business is successful. It's really hard to enjoy life if you're the only person that can flip that burger or make that coffee, because you've basically just changed yourself to, a job.
Well, you've created a job, not a business. Then,
yes,
right?
exactly.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's, talk about that. I mean, imagine in a lot of the businesses that you go in and consult with, there is a lot of owner workers that
totally. And it's a very interesting mindset. And of course, everyone's going to look at this differently because we all are individuals and we do things differently. But we're all on the spectrum of, there are many spectra. I don't know. But we're gonna put this on the, on the one side of the equation, we have chaos, and on the other side we have complete order. And systems are the toolbox that are going to operate and move us along that spectrum. What's important is for the individual business owner or manager to decide where they want to be on that spectrum.
Mhm.
And that comes back to what Sam was alluding to earlier about, getting your core values straightened out and your vision, so that, systems and decisions around systemization fall directly from that. Because if you say, oh, one of our core values is that we're a loose, organic, go with the flow type company, and then you absolutely systemize the thing out of the bloody wazoo, well, then you're in conflict with yourselves.
Yeah.
And what I end up seeing is, and I see both, but usually it's more on the chaos side of it, and I use the word chaos quite warmly and lovingly. I'm not saying that it's a horrible thing, but I started this business. I was passionate about coffee. I'm speaking for Sam here.
Yeah.
I
And-
decided
and
this is what
someone's
I
gotta-
wanted to do. I wanted to bring great coffee to the city. This was my passion, my drive, my reason for being in the world. Okay. And then if I start to systemize that, my fear is, one, perhaps the hidden fear is I'm making myself redundant and my ego can't handle that. And the second thing is
Sam.
It's
Sam.
true.
And the second thing is, it's like, oh, well, do I really, it's kind of worked okay. It hasn't been that bad. And do I really want to, aren't systems and imposing some systems, it's not going to take away the sort of organic nature of the business that has made it successful so far. So everyone goes through this thing, and this swinging back and forth about where it is. But people who've worked in environments where they have experienced systemization will typically adopt it because they know that it's foundational, right? People who haven't come out of that environment will typically hold on to the more natural, organic way of running their business, right? We're just going to kind of go, or they'll very slowly implement things because they don't want to constrain thought creativity, thought processes, input from employees and all that. But really what I see it as systemization, or the development and imposition of good quality procedures, provide you with that luxury to focus on those positive things, your culture, your creativity.
Exactly.
And if you don't have those, you're always just, you got the giant fire hose and you just
You're always in the
spraying it all.
mud.
You never get out of it.
Yeah, you never get out
You're
of
never
it.
going to get out of
Yeah.
it. But it's amazing the resistance you see. So I tend to say to people, especially smaller operators, it's like, listen, I'm not trying to change the way your business is. I'm not trying to change your culture. That culture is always with you. All I'm recommending to you is that and I don't know why I do this, but to me, it's like, you've got this thing, okay, your business. We're just trying to slide a very nice, cozy exoskeleton of structure to it.
Yeah.
Just dropping that on the outside on top just to contain it and keep it moving forward. And if I kind of talk about it that way and then start showing people the benefits, then they'll slowly embrace it. The other side of the coin is, and Calen, you're a great example of this, is when you've got a business that is growth oriented and you're multi-unit, the more multi-unit you become, the more systemized you have to become. Not only consistency, you got to have brand integrity. You can't have a Big Wheel Burger in Alberta and the Big Wheel Burger in Courtney doing things completely different. They have to be the same. If my name is on that door, if the brand is hanging on the wall, people have to have the same experience that they have anywhere.
Yeah.
And that's really freaking hard to do. So systems are the thing that provide you with that. But smart systems, really well intended and well executed systems is the way to go. Not putting together a Big Wheel Burger manual that's got 43,000 pages of minute detail that you can we're not quite at the robot stage yet.
Yeah.
But this is a very interesting discussion, and I'm jumping ahead, and I'm sorry to hog your show, but you guys just go on mute, and I'm going to talk for 20 minutes.
No, John, that's why we got you here.
It kind of makes me think of like kids in the sandbox. When
Totally.
when you let your kids go out and play, and you say you can only go within the bounds of the sandbox, they can be free to play and do whatever they want all day long. They feel comfortable. They feel good about where they're at, and they feel like they can be as creative as they want to. But as soon as you take away those boundaries for people and you give them full freedom and no structure, that's where that that chaos might come in. I
I
don't
just,
know.
had that, I just had that discussion with my 20-year-old son. Man,
Oh man, and I'm way older than him. I should have known this a long time ago, I guess. But when you were saying
right.
putting that cage or that exoskeleton over top
The
of
skeleton's
something,
a great version.
Yeah, that makes
It's not meant to be
like
rigid. It's not meant to be something that constrains you.
Yeah.
It should be, if systems and procedures are well done, okay, like they're appropriate, then they provide you with some level of freedom to be able to spend time on the things that really got you into the business in the first place. Right?
No,
so,
exactly.
But boundaries are, I think that's a great way of looking at it, especially when you work within a corporate or a chain thing. Yeah. Your systems and procedures, your standards, what SOPs, whatever lingo, Sam, that is exactly right. You're just putting the boundaries around the business, and you want people to have freedom to operate within those boundaries. And you also want them, once they get to the point where they understand the systems and procedures, you want them to begin to push those boundaries, but only with knowledge.
Yeah.
Well,
challenge it.
And
that's how you move forward.
Growth, right?
Exactly. But you have to understand the foundation first. You can't just, and this is why chains, and again, wisely so, always seek to promote from within. I'm going to hire a great kid. I'm going to develop them. I'm going to teach them all my systems and procedures. And when they get to the point that they're ready, they're going to be able to run a store, right? As opposed to parachuting someone in from the outside who doesn't understand your culture, doesn't understand your systems and procedures. They're going to bring other experiences to the table, which hopefully are positive, but they're not always, because then you're having conflicting standards and procedures and visions of things, right? And we experienced that at Trading Post recently. Great new chef at one of the locations, blah, 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 coming in, and, instead of spending time thinking about, gee, what are really the big picture opportunities I have to influence this kitchen and influence the financial outcome, they go to something that's very familiar with them. Oh, I'm going to do a price comparison because I think that we're paying too much for our dried spices. I was like, well, that's great. But you got to start with understanding the culture. We can get chicken cheaper, but you realize that we use, free range local chicken. Oh, I didn't realize. And that we use a BC only fresh beef product or whatever, like you guys do too, right?
Yeah.
We're going to pay a premium on certain things quite intentionally based upon our values. So So when the point being, as I go on my tangent, when you drop people in from the outside and they bring their biases in, oftentimes they're going to be in conflict with what is the foundation that you've been trying to build. Now, that's not always bad. In fact, it's often quite good at certain times, but usually you're going to be better off promoting one of your people to a GM of a big wheel burger store, a new location, than bringing somebody in who's from, I don't know, Tim Hortons, who's got all those systems and procedures and a totally different way of thinking. Your systems and procedures support your values, support your identity, support your core focus, support your vision.
Well, and a lot of that stuff, if you've been around a long time, is key to the customer's experience with your business as well. You've created this culture. So, and I know in our experience, having to go backfill a bunch of systems, you lose touch on the ground level as well. I mean, everything requires an investment of time and energy. So, as much as, with two stores, we kind of like, okay, great. We got everything back. Our culture is good. Our values are good. We're in touch with our store team so that they feel a part of the process.
Huge.
And that's great. You go to your third one and exposes even more cracks. And then you're like, well, wait a minute. You spend a year and a half, 2 years, and all of a sudden now you have a culture problem, because you've been focused on systems. So
totally.
You know what I mean? Like the boomerang effect of, okay, it's great to have the systems, but you really need to kind of walk and chew gum at the same time as best as you can. But I think that rather than, okay, forget it, we need to delay implementing a system so we don't jeopardize culture, or we need to focus on culture and not worry about systems. I think you need to, part of the planning process is to do that at the up front. Like, think big picture, define 3 or 4, operating procedures you want to do that are relevant to your business, and then just use that as the framework to then just add more. So you're adding 1 or 2 versus like rebuilding the whole ship partway through. Like
that's a great way of looking at it. And look, especially if you're, when you're in a startup phase and you're drawing these things up from scratch, which we never do. We never do them in advance. We always do it. We're always building the airplane as we're flying it, right? but to go back and identify, okay, gee, what are the most important things? Not let's systemize the daylights out of every little thing.
Yeah.
Like this is the way you clean the mirror in the bathroom, little Jimmy, in 12 steps.
Exactly.
That's all well and good. But what we're really trying to do is, okay, what are the issues, the problems, the opportunities within our business that are always presenting themselves consistently, right? We over and over go over these. Happens all the time. Okay, how do we then put a couple of systems in place to influence these most important things? And let's focus on those. And then, like you said, let's just slowly build and add as we need to.
Yeah.
You don't want to get to the place where you mentioned culture, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to weave this into my comment. You don't want your systems dictating your culture. You want your culture dictating your systems. Right? They're there in support. They're simply tools.
Yeah.
And what we tend to do, and they're always evolving, and they're living, breathing things. It's not like, oh, we're going to do the XYZ system for, interview. This is the way we interview and hire, and then not touch it for 10 years, because things are always changing. So you need to go back and revise them at least once a year, just to make sure they're still relevant, to make sure that they're still doing what they're meant to be doing. And most importantly, the other big mistake that we do is we'll tend to, the brain trust of burger, at Big Wheel Burger will come together and say, oh, let's put together these systems, and then we'll impose them upon people. Whereas you mentioned it right, Calen, the first thing you do is you want to go to your people and have them included and say, hey, we're trying to make your life easier. You're the expert burger flipper. You're our number one grill cook. Can you identify for me the problems, the challenges, the opportunities that exist to make your life easier, more efficient, more productive? And 9 times out of 10, they'll gladly tell you. But if you don't ask, a lot of people will just keep it to themselves because they figure it's not their role. I'm just here to flip the burger. I'm not here to tell you how I think I can flip the burger best.
Well, and it comes down to creating those types of things will eventually create a toxic kind of culture,
for sure,
to a large degree. I know for us, we're just going through. It's funny because the timing of almost every week when we do our podcast, that there's always something that's so relevant to what we're dealing with right now, and it's literally every single one of them have been this, and this is no different. When we're looking at our systems, and for me as the guy at the top of the pile of burgers, looking down and going, okay, well, how can I best support my team? And it's not about how I can best direct them or tell them what to do. It's about just supporting them in a way that I can give them guidance and also create that focus and structure. So, I've got
and provide them with the resources
and identifying what resources they need. Yeah. And the biggest thing that we're learning right now is all of our great work we've done on systemization and implementing systems. We lose track of the culture, but we also lost track of the measure monitor of what those systems that we are implementing have done. And so what's the point of creating a system that you don't have a measure monitor of? So you have no idea whether, the person who's implementing it even likes it or thinks it works, or is it even relevant to your business anymore? And that was one thing, for us, is just defining what the structure is going to be and what the operating procedure is going to be, and then building the measure and monitor to see if it makes sense. So don't come to me with an idea for, policy or some structure without the measure and monitor after. Make sure that loop is complete, so that you can go a year from now and see if that's even relevant to what your business is, and be prepared to just say scuttle it if it isn't, or adapt it in a way that is more relevant. Right? But if you don't talk to your people, how the hell are you going to know? You don't. And then you show up a year later and you wonder why your culture is all messed up.
And turnover's gone up.
It kind of sounds like your structure ought to be a direct reflection of your core values, or your value system, or your mission statement, or whatever you want to call it. If your systems that you've built and spent all this time on are a direct reflection of those, then your business shouldn't ever have a problem with them.
No, it should be they should be easily integrated.
Work together.
Right? If you've done your proper consultation with the team that is actually responsible for executing, then those systems you implement should be both welcome, intuitive, and work for them on a day-to-day basis so that they actually are doing what the intention of that system was.
Right.
And it's not always that case, but I think a lot of people get caught up in their own drinking their own Kool-Aid and
Yeah, for
going,
sure.
hey, this is my idea. This is, I've implemented it. So being prepared for the tough answer back and leaving the environment open to receive that criticism is good. And that input, like some input is not really relevant because they're missing the big picture. But if you've shared the big picture with them, you've told them what your intent of this thing is, and they are adopting it and receiving of it, then it should be successful, which will then, I always look at things as letting me sleep at night. Like if there's something that I'm worried
totally
about,
right.
is like, okay, so Yan, my GM, proposes a system. I'm like, okay, that system sounds good on the surface. And then 6 months later, we go through and like, oh, well, we implemented the system. Well, they're not doing it. I'm like, okay, well, did we measure and monitor? Like, how did we check back on them to see? Because, eventually, if you're changing a bunch of things at the same time, you can stack all these systems on and just drive them into the ground where they're just like, Jesus, give me a break. Right? Like, how can I implement all this stuff? And now you want me to get my feedback on it. And I think that's where, sometimes just taking a beat and then, shrinking it and going, okay, well, I'm going to do 1 or 2 things over the next 6 months. Let that settle in, get the feedback, side of is working, and then add. And there's certain systems that are more critical than others, I guess.
Oh, for sure.
But I think in general, if you just kind of, cut the pie down a little bit is probably a better approach, I think.
Yeah. And the elephant in the room in the hospitality business, well, it's always been it's the same elephant, but suddenly it seems to just be exponentially more crazy than not is the labor shortage, right? People, especially with COVID, it was tough before COVID, and now a lot of those people who are in the hospitality business are not even bothering coming back.
Yeah.
Right? It's not that they're sitting at home collecting the curb or EI and saying F you, pardon my language, I don't want to work. You can bleep that out.
We're gonna have to cut it in.
Can you tell we're hospitality people? It's like a locker room, or worse. But when we have that situation where, if we're in a growing company, for one, we need to systemize more. But now you're in that situation where we've got a smaller pool of labor to draw from. And we're trying, in fact, to aggressively attract people who know nothing about the business into it, and we need to be able to train them. We will never succeed in achieving our objectives, whether that's growth, whether that's profit, whether that's making the best loaf of bread, whatever motivates us. We're never going to be able to achieve that unless we have enough systems to make that transition into the workforce and then moving through different stations or level of promotion. An easier, successful transition. People know, right? No one, for the most part, I can't think of 34 years of management experience. I can't think of a time where someone, actually only once, where someone said, "You're too systemized for me." I have heard many times, "This place is a disaster. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. It's stressful. Everything's all over the place. One day it's like my kitchen at home. One day the spatula is over here, and the next day it's over in the drawer across the room." People want to have that consistency. It gives
routine.
them that. It's routine. It gives them a level of security. It makes them feel. It takes away undue stress. And as we continue to go through this labor shortage while we're trying to grow, our systems are going to have to get smarter and smarter. Not necessarily more, but better.
Yeah.
Right? Otherwise, you're never going to be able to grow to 25 stores or whatever it is that you want to do, unless that system, that foundation of systems is really well devised, intended, and implemented.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it, like giving structure to your staff and giving them a safe place to work where they can have some control. I mean, there's other elements in that too, because ultimately, employees want to have control of their own schedule. They want to have different things that they want to do in their life. And if you don't provide that workspace and freedom for that, and for growth, even personal, whether it be, just in their own private life or professional, in your organization, you're going to run into problems retaining people.
No question.
And I think that comes to some of the other stuff that we had a podcast recently to do with living wages. And I
Right.
know Sam and I are both devising living wage programs for our staff and
Mhm.
actually making this industry a career. I mean, I know
Yes,
there's career
as it should
people,
be.
like people don't, there's career hospitality workers. Um, and then there's the transitional, sort of passive, which it makes up a bunch of people. I mean, somebody could be in the
Of
restaurant for
course.
a year to 5
Yeah.
years and not
Just
consider it a
passing through.
career,
Yep.
Yeah.
which is fine because you always
Yeah.
get every profession needs that type of work base. But
Agreed.
redesigning and reconfiguring how the majority of people that want to look to the hospitality industry as a career, I think that's important. And
Agreed.
part of that is, addressing the tip. But more importantly, not even addressing the tip, just building a business model and plan that can actually support a living wage for your
Absolutely right.
staff.
Yeah,
know.
our when I send, it's funny because I've been in hospitality forever, like I've said 100 times already. I never advocated that any of my children follow my career path.
Yeah.
Not well, no, not intentionally avoiding it, but not also forcing them into it. Being very open about it. My youngest kid is working in the hospitality business, and for the most part, I'd say he's having a really good experience. But what you say about, I'm gonna totally change paths right now because I can't get the living wage thing out of my head. So to rewind. I read an article in the New York Times this morning, and I can't remember who it was an opinion piece, but it was a very interesting thing about poverty and how it's deeply ingrained and how it all exists and da 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 da. But the one point is that our whole economic system, and I'm not an economist, so don't shoot me, is based upon having a huge sector of low-paid jobs producing low-cost goods that we can all afford to indulge in, whatever those things might be. And hospitality is a prime example. Yeah. I want to pay $1.98 for my frickin' Big Mac, and I want that because that is my human right. In order for the McDonald's to provide that Big Mac, which is now probably closer to $6, you're not getting it for free. Something has to give. And we've usually been doing it on the backs of low-paid workers. Well, you can't do that anymore. The expectation, the fundamental flaw in hospitality and living wage is that the marketplace has gotten far too accepting or expecting of a low-priced environment.
Yeah. Like
and it's
cheaper
not, it's
than they
luxury.
can make at their own
cheaper
house.
than they can make it themselves, and that's wrong.
Yeah.
And so it should be going out to eat should be a bit of a luxury.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be an expectation or a human right that I can go out and get these things. It costs money.
It can't be a human right.
So,
well, not all products the same either, right?
Not all products the same. So
you can't go cheeseburger 1, cheeseburger 1, or coffee 1, coffee 2.
No.
The inputs are different.
Totally.
The attention to detail, the quality of the product, and all of those things are a thing. So as, being in the business, you literally just have to create your own destiny and hope that your people follow you.
One of my number one pieces of advice, or probably the most repeated piece of advice that I give to clients is raise your prices.
Yeah.
Raise your prices.
Yeah.
Raise your prices. Raise your prices. Oh, we can't do that. Yes, you can. You have to be a price leader, and your competition will see that and they'll follow you because everyone's suffering from the same problems. You can't, luckily or unluckily, depending upon how you look at it, our minimum wage is now $15.20 or whatever it is in British Columbia. And that's great for many reasons. But in environments where that are markets where that doesn't exist, what do you do? You've got a problem where you're not going to attract good people. You're not, even no matter how good your systems and procedures are, you're not going to get great quality, consistent product. And people are still going to be, your marketplace is still going to be pushing you for the lowest possible price, which is basically the one that's going to put you out of business. So I don't know. It's such a bizarre thing. So raise your prices, pay your people well, put great systems and procedures in place, and run a great business.
Well, and this is the thing, like paying your people, and it goes to supporting the community too, and trying to do what you can for everybody, because it just makes the place a better place to live. And imagine if you've got, there's thousands of hospitality workers in Victoria and Southern Vancouver Island and Vancouver Island in general. Imagine if they were all making, upwards of $20 an hour.
Yeah.
They could, perhaps buy a house in some community on the island, or at least not struggle to pay their bills or get a higher education or go on a
have to
family
work
trip
two
or,
jobs
or have to work two
Right.
jobs, God
Two
forbid.
jobs or three jobs.
Struggle.
Right. So,
Yeah,
but I
totally.
think it does take, there's a fear when you own a business that you're going to alienate people. The one thing that
Yes.
in my 20 some odd years experience in hospitality that I have never shied away from doing is raising prices. And not once, and never did I raise the prices enough
Right.
to fix, the wage
Yeah.
component or fix my
Yeah.
bottom line component, any of that. It was basically just out of, well, this will help us, pay some of the bills if we increase the prices. And nobody's ever complained. It's not to say that we're the cheapest burger on the block. We aren't. But if you look at what you're buying per ounce, only McDonald's is cheaper as per ounce. But nobody does that analysis.
No.
They're just like, oh, your burger's $9.50 and McDonald's is $6. It was like, okay, well, you're getting like 5-ounce burger, you're getting 2-ounce burger over here. Anyway, but it's about feeling the fear and doing it anyways, because the alternative is it's servitude, and it's working your own business as an employee forever. And it's really hard to grow your business when you don't have any extra,
No question.
shekels to expand.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
I had an interesting experience. We're going off topic.
Wow.
That's great. I love doing this. But on that note, I was having a discussion with a client / now friend of mine who runs not a hospitality or hospitality related business, and I went through my whole song and dance. I was like, you guys are too cheap. Oh, what do you mean? Well, you're too cheap because you're losing in excess of $100,000 each year. So something's not right somewhere. But one of the things is you're too cheap, and you don't need to be, because you're missing where you are positioned within the market compared to others. So say, I'll make it up. Say it's a winery. Okay, well, my bottle of wine of local, organic, hand harvested, small, I make 1,000 cases of wine a year, and I'm charging $19 for my entry level white wine. And I said, well, maybe you should charge $5 more.
Yeah.
And because I want to buy that story. I'm not buying the wine. I'm buying the story.
Totally.
And I'm buying into the scarcity. And then, but my mom won't be able to afford to buy that wine, a case of that wine anymore. Well, sorry, your mom is not the customer, your customer. Exactly. And that's no affront to your mother, because I'm not your target market either. There's lots of wines that your mother can buy by the case for $10, $12, $15, $16. But doesn't mean that you have to be that, because we're apples to oranges here. You have to charge what it is, again, in support of your core values and support of your quality mission and support of your people and fair wages. You have to, and you're the one taking all the bloody risk. You got your butt hanging out the back of the trailer. You're $1 million in debt, and it's all, most small business people have to use their own assets as security for their loans. So you can't afford not to raise your prices by a couple of bucks for that bottle of wine or that 6-pack of beer.
I mean, if you want to be in business, if you want to subsidize your customers, then that's great. But I don't think anybody has that intention. I think the difference with people is their kind of backgrounds, and whether you come from the business aspect or you come from the creative component of it, where you're passionate and you want to feed the people your creation and your vision of that.
Right.
And I think they can coexist.
They have to.
Right. And I think generally speaking, just whatever price that comes in here, and I say this to my people all the time, whatever price, name a price, and then I'm going to add 20% to it.
Yeah,
so
totally.
Like right out of the gate. So what is your price? What's the most you think you can charge for that? Okay, it's $8. Well, I think we're going to charge $10.50. And then they look at me like I'm like crazy, and I'm like, well, you have to provide the value. Like this is under the assumption that you are buying good ingredients, you're preparing it well.
Yeah, the quality has to be there. The
Like
experience has to be there. Everything.
Yeah, you can't serve and just talking about burgers, because you can't serve a ballpark burger that's out of like a trailer for the price of something that comes from the Four Seasons, for example. Right.
Yeah.
That's organic and 6 ounces instead of 3 ounces or whatever. But I think even in both cases, there's an unwillingness to go to the price that you need to go, because if they're making 2 to 3%, they're greatly underpriced, because you should be making, between 8 and 15%.
Right.
Depending on the
I
business.
love the idea of taking the biggest number you got and just adding 20%.
Yeah.
I heard someone say that a long time ago, Dan Sullivan.
Right.
He does that. He's like, he's just after the biggest check he can get, that guy.
Yeah.
And it's legit, add 20%.
Yeah, it's not gouging, right?
It's
gouging
not.
is gouging, right? We've all been to tourist traps where they overcharge for the crap that they're delivering and all that. But when you're an honest person, you're working hard, you're putting great quality premium product on a plate, you're working harder than anyone else to provide a great experience. You have to be, and you're paying your people well.
Exactly.
You have to, and fear is the word, right? We're also bloody motivated by fear, present company included, right? We have this mentality that is all built upon scarcity, and what we really need to do is shift our mentality towards abundance.
Exactly.
If we're doing all the right things and we're charging a fair, competitive price, that means fair to me as a business owner and fair to my employees, as well as fair to the customer, not just fair to the customer, then I'm going to win. I've got a sustainable model. But if I'm trying to provide the best of the best of the best and then feeling like I've got to undercut the guy down the street, all we're doing is setting ourselves up.
Well, that gets into the other point about worrying about competition. And what is the other guy doing or other girl doing? It doesn't matter to me as long as I know what I'm doing. And if they're doing a great job, that's going to make the entire neighborhood better, because now you're, instead of just having one really good operator on it, you're going to have multiple, and then you're going to be a destination. And then I don't care what that person's charging, because I don't know, maybe they just won a lottery and they don't care about making profit or whatever. You don't know their motivation. But I think, running a business, the sole purpose of it is to profit. The sole purpose of it is to provide jobs, good paying jobs for your employees. And I think, forget about yourself. Like, if I don't care about money and I can live on very little, think about advocating for your staff. Like advocating for your, the suppliers advocate for themselves all day long. Who's advocating for your team? And by not charging what you need to charge, or if I'm putting my own fears into the mix, then I'm not only doing myself a disservice, I'm doing our team and our staff a disservice, because I'm never going to be able to, other than bankrupting myself, I'm never going to be able to pay them what they deserve if I don't change the fundamental pricing practice, right?
Totally.
So,
and this is also, going back around to systems, this is also a very important part. The systems are the thing, forget about our pricing for a second. Oh, no, don't forget about it. That's very important. But having good quality, the right amount of, in the right places of these systems is that element that secures that level of profit that we need, that we're not bleeding profit all the way down every line of the income statement and ending up with a negative at the bottom. It doesn't matter what we charge if we're running a crap business. So, good quality systems and processes, procedures, whatever lingo, SOPs, all of that's going to provide you with the opportunity to protect your bottom line a little bit more, and protect your people, and protect the quality of the guest experience, and is in support of that pricing model that you have. You can't just go about raising your prices because you're running a crap business. Right. You've got to be able to raise your prices because you're running a great business and you're doing it for the right reasons.
And it's got to be justifiable.
Totally. And then that foundation of systems and procedures is that thing that is in service to the bigger picture of what you're trying to achieve. Is what protects you along the way. And so many businesses fail to do it. Now, it's funny when I look back on my career, and I'm not blowing my own horn because I was just a stupid kid. I'm still a stupid kid. But I went from, funny you mentioned Four Seasons. My first real management job was at the Four Seasons Hotel in Toronto. I was a junior schmuck supervisor because I wanted to work with the best. That was where I wanted to start. My second career job was working at Earl's Restaurants. And I spent 4.5 years, early to mid 90s, working at Earl's, because I realized, and I think it was quite by accident at the time, but in retrospect, I looked like a genius. I realized that working with great chefs, having great service, doing everything at the top end is really awesome. But I didn't learn anything about how to run a business. And going to a place like an Earl's or similar, right? They're all chains are very quite heavily systemized. I knew that I needed to learn that stuff if I was going to not only advance my career, but hopefully have a business of my own at one point in time. So working in diametrically opposed type environments. But I'll tell you, I learned a lot more in my first 2 months at Earl's as a junior manager than I did at 2 years at the flagship hotel, Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts in Toronto.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me, for sure. And I think, further to the point is every one of those points that you brought up, from the systems to the pricing to the, the wages, and all of them are equally as important.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have all of them, you've got there's a chink in your armor that
Totally.
can be exposed. If you don't have the quality, if you aren't paying people well, if you aren't charging enough, all of it, and if you don't have any systems, any one of those things can bring you down for what would normally be a successful business. And what's the worst thing that can happen to a person in business is them losing hope and them losing their passion. Yes. Because you get beaten down by it all. But in most cases, I'm going to venture to say, it is that business person's either lack of due diligence or lack of preparation or themselves being in their own way that stop them. Obviously, there's some just bad ideas that are done in bad locations or what have you. Sure. But fundamentally, if it's a good, strong idea and you have the passion and there is success, and it's up after that, it's up to you to get out of your own way in order for it to reach its potential.
Agreed.
And every business has a lifespan. So it's not to say that, every business is going to be a 100-year business. Most businesses aren't. But I think if you're starting with a good intention and trying to put the good practice in, you can make your life a lot easier and allow you to be as passionate as you want to be and lean on the systems that you create. And knowing that, okay, those systems are in place. Now I get to be creative. I'm a good culture guy. I'm not a good, details guy when it comes to setting up systems. So if the systems are in place, I get to go high five people and smile at people.
This is exactly right. And I think that's a brilliant way of looking at it. Having a good set of systems to whatever level you feel comfortable with, not overdoing it, but just that fundamental base of systems provides you with the freedom to do what you love, the thing that you got into the business for initially.
Yeah.
Right. So that you can go around and high five people, or you can spend time fussing with the recipe in the kitchen because it's something that you're really passionate about, and your people around you feed off of that. But if you're just a total basket case running around at Mach 9 and you're going home after 12 hours every day and crying in your beer, you're sunk, right? Yeah. It's not going to get you anywhere, and you're going to hate your business and you're going to lose your passion faster than you can say, whatever, Bob's your uncle.
And you know what? And the recipes are in front of us. Like the systems, system for the system is right there in order to lessen the impact of that. And there's going to be things that are going to come down the pipe that you won't expect, that no system is going to be able to solve. But you're going to be way better if you have the system in place. The chances of success in anything with planning is always further than if you don't.
Absolutely right.
You're just relying on luck and hard work. Yeah. So hard work is never fun, and it's never good to rely on luck.
Yeah.
So
they're both needed, like you said, but they're not going to be guaranteeing success for you.
No, exactly.
So we've been talking about systemization and keeping track of everything and really putting systems into place. And we've talked about some companies that do that very well and do a lot of systems, and other places that don't do any systems at all. Is there a magic number? I mean, I want to say 80-20, but I mean, that seems like a universal magic number.
I think the 80-20 is beautiful. I use it all the time, as you know, but I think that it's got to be an individual ownership or leadership team decision as to how systemized you feel that you need to be. Or want to be, or are comfortable being. And I think that's really the beginning of it. What kind of vibe are we doing? Like, are we wanting to McDonald's-ify everything, or are we wanting to, I always like, and this is probably my own error because it's a little bit loose and intangible, but I always like to say that your systems and procedures have to be there to support what it is that you're trying to do and not become something that has a life of its own, because I think there's a danger. So at some point in time, the leadership team has to figure it out. So what does that look like? Well, like I said, sort of at the beginning, start big and you're thinking about, okay, what areas of the business do we feel that we need to have good quality systems and procedures in? Okay, let's go to the next level. Let's keep these simple. Let's just write down, 5 to 7 steps for each of these processes. So there might be, and Sam's familiar with this entrepreneurial operating system, EOS, that he uses in his business to an extent, and I've used in other businesses. I'm not a facilitator and I don't sell it, but they're very smart. Each company should have 6 to 10 core processes, is what they say, right? So, and that's the bigger picture stuff. And then so there might be HR, bookkeeping. I've said this before. Sorry about that. A bunch of operating systems, maybe marketing, maybe sales, whatever the big 6 to 10 core processes are. Well, you build those out and maybe they have, 6 to 10 steps. And then you start adding in standard operating procedures that are more detailed to support those. And you'll know, if you've got your finger on the pulse of who you are as a company, at what point you're starting to get too systemized and that the systems aren't in service of the bigger picture. But that's the process you have to go through. I think people hear systems and they shut off.
Yeah.
And the other big thing about the EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system thing, and the guy's name is, what's his name?
Gino Wickman.
Thank you. Gino Wickman started it.
In the book Traction.
Traction.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys are disciples. Here I am. Yeah. I do it for 6 businesses and I still forget the guy's name. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So where was I going with that? Oh yeah, 80-20. So you build out system. Our tendency is then to want to dive into these systems and want to build them out to 1,000 steps. Okay, well then you get into difficulty. So the EOS philosophy is, I'm going to build each system out 20% of the way, like really well. Okay, these are the important things that absolutely must have or must happen within this process. Okay, and if I do that well, and then my people train them well, and getting back to Calen's earlier point, we actually then have the ability to measure, right, and hold accountable. Then what will yield is 80% compliance.
Yeah.
Whereas if we want to do the opposite, which is what I've done many times, is you sit there in front of your computer in your son's bedroom and you start building out this process, and you want to build it out 100% of the way. Well, you're not going to get 100% compliance. You're not even going to get 80% compliance. You actually might be down to the 20% compliance because it's so complex. Everyone's eyes are spinning in the sockets.
And you haven't thought of everything either. So when you go to implement, you in your bedroom next to the trees, you're like, you're thinking, oh, this is perfect. I've thought of everything. There we go. See the trees. But in reality, there are people, depending on what level they are on the decision making or the implementation part of it, they'll be like, this, I don't even know why they're thinking about this. This is totally irrelevant to me.
Yeah.
And by then you've lost them, because it doesn't matter what tweaks you make to it. They've already thrown it out in their brain.
They're gone.
And
people
then
just
they're viewing it as something you're doing to them rather than them being a part of it. But if you build it 20%, then you get their input, and then by the time it's actually working, you've got that 80% compliance. I think that's a great point.
I kind of see that 20% as being again with the sandboxes. That 20% is an outline of the sandbox, maybe.
Yeah, that's right.
And then the
exactly
80% is everything creative that happens inside that.
Yeah, and I think there is still room, even in growing companies, corporate environments, chains, whatever you want to, multi-units, whatever lingo you want to attach to it. Systems have to provide the backbone or that foundation, but you still have to leave room for intuition, individual input, a little bit of interpretation, because that's where you really get the best out of it, where you get buy-in from your good people.
Well, if you don't have the buy-in, you've got nothing.
You're sunk.
You're sunk. So I think that's a great point to leave, wrap up our podcast.
Totally.
Very positive way to end it.
Well, I think there's a ton of really good information in there, and I'm so proud of the fact that we get to have guests like John on with have that infinite experience, and that we can share it. I mean, this is just our whole Bread and Butter Collective, just about sharing information and taking what you can out of it and hopefully implementing some of it. And for those that are looking for some coaching, Table 9 coaching, it's fantastic. John Reese, immense experience. I know he's very busy, but definitely look to John for some
shrugging his
thank
shoulders over
Thank
there.
you for the vote of confidence.
Busy,
I'm pretty busy, but I'm never. I shrug because I'm never too busy for a cool project.
No, this is the thing. I love talking about that. So.
I love working with great people who are doing great things, and I'll always have time for that, even if it's just for a coffee and shooting the breeze. So
yeah, I think that's great. Awesome. Well, thanks, John. Appreciate it. Good to see you.
Thank you both.
Let's do a beer at some point. It's soon.
That's right. Beer and coffee all around, right?
Yes, beer,
All
coffee.
right, bring it on.
Okay.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, John. Cheers.
Thanks, John. Thanks for your input. Oh, so nice to.
John's the best.
Yeah, sure is. I love having him.
He's one of the good ones.
Yeah.
And he's not afraid to share information, which is the beauty. I think information sharing is the best way to support ourselves, but also support the broader industry. And why keep all that information to yourself?
Well, it's a great way to make yourself an expert in any field is to share that knowledge. I mean,
totally.
If you don't share it,
you
no
get
one
to
knows
test
you
your
have
theories
it, right?
too, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, everybody brings something to the table. So if you're presenting an idea or a problem or a situation, if you're coming at it from, let's discuss it, and you've got your experience and your viewpoint, there's somebody that can point you in a different direction that'll actually move that along and help you.
Right.
And, I think the danger in anything is thinking you know all of it.
Right.
There's certain things that, I could never tell you how to, roast beans, and I mean, I couldn't even probably tell you how to properly cook a burger, but
oh man, I remember when I first called Table 9 in for some serious work, because I've known John off and on for years actually, but I've never done anything with him in terms of coaching or trying to get help. And when I brought him in, man, I mean, I'm not going to say that John Reese changed my life, but he came into my life with a couple tools that, were same kinds of things, same direction I was leaning towards anyway. Yeah. And man, that just having the first conversation really put me on a much better path. And for anyone out there who's kind of struggling in their business and not knowing where they're at, I mean, get yourself a mentor. And get someone that you can sit down and take time out with and just have a conversation.
Even if it's somebody in your community that you respect, just look them up, get their email address, shoot them an email. I know I've gotten a ton of emails from people just looking for some advice and bouncing stuff off of. I've shared business plans, kind of like what the Bread and Butter Collective does.
Right.
But don't be afraid to just seek advice. I know I love talking about myself. So.
Oh, and I love talking about you. So I guess that's why we're at the same table. But no, we all think. I think that entrepreneurs who are struggling don't make time to do simple things like go out for a coffee with someone who may have some experience, or at least someone you can bounce some ideas off of.
Listen, one little piece of advice could change, like you said, what John did to you. It just change your whole framework. Even change the way you approach a problem is huge.
Sure.
I mean, you could be making consistent mistakes and, how you're even evaluating problems, never mind trying to solve them. So if somebody can give you just a little nugget that just changes your perspective a bit, it's of huge value. And most people will give you the information for free.
Right.
And all you have to do is ask or put yourself out there. So, show, a desire to improve, but show a little humility in that you don't have all the answers. And if you're struggling, everybody's been there.
Right.
Like every struggle you've had, I've had. We've all been there. In business, the struggles are the same. So, open yourself up to the possibility that, there's people out there that are willing to give you information for free.
And man, the Bread and Butter Collective is based on the fact that we want to be mentors to people who need them. And I mean, if you don't think that, if you're not in the burger business, or if you're not in the coffee business and you still need some mentorship and you think that we're not the ones, man, have we got a list of members who are dying to talk to you just to coach you along, answer some questions.
Exactly. And we'll kick that off with our membership group. We're very thankful they're part of our collective. We'll start with 2% Jazz Coffee.
Oh, sure.
Hey, yo.
Hey.
900-degree wood-fired pizzeria.
Oh, yeah.
Agrius, Bodega, Tapa Wine Bar. Big Wheel Burger.
The biggest.
Nourish. Charlotte the Quail. Drum Roaster Coffee Company. Habit Coffee. Foo. Culinary Kitchen Classroom at Camosun College. Cafe Fantastico. Folepi.
Herald Street Brew Works. Oh, I've been spending a bit of time there.
Yeah,
lately.
they're good.
Yeah. Hey Happy, the House of Botang, Hoyne Brewery, La Pasta, La Rue Patisserie, the Mocha House, Part and Parcel, Poco, Pintex Bar. How do you pronounce it? I'm really sorry.
Well, we're going to find out.
We are. Okay. Please tell me, because I'm done saying it wrong. Pizzeria Prima Strada, Roast, Table 9, and Sherwood Cafe and Bar, and the Drake, the Tapa Bar, Taco Stand, El Pastor, Took, the Wienery, and Zambries.
Zambries. Well, that's fantastic. Another show. I think our next show will be about how to make your business a carbon neutral business. We're going to be doing a little bit of some climate action discussion. That'll be our next episode. I'm just saying it because
then it's going to happen.
Then it's going to happen, right? If we don't say it, it won't happen.
It might be something different.
But
it won't be now.
It can't be now. Well, but I've gone back on my words before, so maybe it won't. No, it will be.
Excellent. Well, I mean, I think this week is going to be one of the best weeks. Let's
I agree.
Go make it happen.
Let's go make it happen.
I said it was going to be, and now we have to make it happen.
Now we got to make it happen.
Just like we have to make our businesses carbon neutral by next week, or
no. Just start the journey. We're going to talk about how to do it. But we'll just start the journey.
Okay, I thought this was going to be really hard. We call
no. All right, everybody, be safe, be kind, and take care of each other.
Yeah, be nice, everyone, too.
All right, thank you.